This episode of Loving You, the podcast, is brought to you by Sony Music and The Orchard, home of Eleanor Crazy for You and Groove Dynasty's Somebody Loves You Back. Both are available on all digital outlets. Hey everyone, it's good to talk to y'all again. It's been a minute. I've been thinking about our radio show that we had last week where we talked about micro-cheating, and we had a lot of responses in the chat room, and it just brought up the topic of cheating in general, and I thought that would be something that we could talk about in this podcast. So I did a little bit of research, and the research actually really surprised me as to the extent and the numbers that we're finding with cheating. For instance, according to the National Institute of Health, 88% of couples that are divorcing blame infidelity as a major factor in the dissolution of that marriage. Sugar Drug Online Doctor Survey, this one blew me away. I'm sure it's going to blow you away too. In 2017, they did a study on affairs, and they found that 18.6% of European men and 14.4% of European women think that intercourse is not cheating. The funny part is 3% of American men felt the same way. But before I continue with any of these statistics, I can see someone chomping at the bit. He just has something to say. So let's go ahead and welcome Chris to the show. Hey, Chris, how are you?
14%.
14%. You need to move to Europe.
I'm in the wrong country.
Exactly.
Now, that's crazy. I thought the number would be higher with men than women.
It's marginally higher, but yeah, not much.
Wow.
Now, what was the most interesting, and I didn't get to say that, was that 43.5% of American women think that going out with friends is a form of cheating.
Of course.
So you'd be in trouble.
I would think that. I believe that. Because, again,
we don't play in this country.
Women go hard. That's all I'm going to say right now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Women go hard.
According to these studies, not only do they go hard, but American women are the ones that have the lowest threshold for what they constitute as cheating, like holding hands. They consider that to be a form of cheating, which kind of made me think of the talk that we had about micro-cheating.
Yeah. Holding hands. Yeah, I would probably call that cheating because now I'm in your personal space. It's like, that's that. I'm going to go with that. I rock with that. Yeah,
so you'll take holding hands. It's obviously, it's kind of like micro-cheating, it's kind of different degrees.
Right.
But what's the heavy hitter is, of course,
sex.
Yeah, sex.
Yeah, of course. But we're headed that way. Once I get into your personal space and once I'm holding hands and doing all that kind of stuff, then yeah, we're headed that way. It usually starts kind of slowly. So that is the direction it tends to go in, unless you get caught before you really pull down your pants. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm just getting all the statistics right now.
Yeah. Well, so 31% of affairs start in the workplace.
31%, yeah, because, you have a work husband and you have a work wife and all that kind of stuff. And we start off playing that away.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's even a way to play.
No, but that's a thing, where people like, that's my work husband, we just friends. Okay.
Yeah, you're giving him a title already that belongs to, that's an intimate title.
Yes. But, all of a sudden your husband show up and you're like, oh, you want to see Debbie, my work wife? It's going to be a problem, man. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that would be an issue.
Or he gets, this one guy has a real issue when I show up at your job.
My real husband.
Yeah, when I show up, the other guy, the work husband, has an issue. Now there's feelings involved.
That's dangerous. That's actually quite dangerous. Yeah, I mean, there has to be, and I think I spoke about it in the radio show. I was reading an article about this man that his wife for his birthday sent him one of those bouquets of fruit, a fruit bouquet.
Right.
And he was with his female colleague, and she was reminds me of what you said the other day. She was making comments about how the pineapple, he should be eating up all that pineapple because it would make oral sex better
Tastes
for his wife.
Right, tastes like pineapple.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
But so his wife, and actually now I'm remembering where I saw this. This was in Facebook, one of the groups I belong to. So the wife was saying, "Is this?" I got upset, and then he got mad at me because I was upset. But is this appropriate behavior?
Well, I'm sure he led with, "You're insecure."
Oh, well, but you men love to throw that on us. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he led with that one. It's like, you're insecure, and you should listen to the radio show with Debbie Lopez and Chris Clark.
Yeah, no, if he listens to the radio show with Debbie Lopez, that's not insecurity. That's inappropriate behavior. He shouldn't be talking with his work wife or... First of all, that's a workplace. That could be taken as sexual harassment in a workplace.
Yeah, it depends on where you work.
Absolutely.
And what industry you work in, because I come from the music business. That would not be anything.
Well, I come from the corporate world, and
that would probably be a lot.
Yeah, we get training every year on inappropriate and appropriate behavior in the workplace. So that, you're absolutely right. It depends on where you are. But either way, it's got nothing to do with where he is. It has to do with the fact that he's married and he's making these comments or sharing. And someone wouldn't say that to you out of the blue. Mm-hmm. So this is a relationship.
But we have a friendship. We've worked together now for 15 years. We've built a bond.
But I've worked with people for 15 years as well, and I wouldn't be talking to another man about sexuality that way. I would not be opening up that conversation.
But there's different breeds of people.
Absolutely. But so the point is, you're making all these excuses for this behavior that's inappropriate.
No, but it's inappropriate, but I could see it happening because we're in a safe space because of our friendship, and we just really clowning around.
Well, so the next question was, do you know this person? And the wife said, I've never met her. They've only been working together for 6 months.
Wow. Okay. Now that's a little hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
So to me, that's one of these micro cheating moments that even if they're not, they're starting to cross boundaries where it would make it much easier. And if they're in the corporate world, according to that Superdrug Doc survey, 31% of affairs are in the workplace, and the higher you are on the corporate ladder, the higher the chances are that you will be cheating.
So if you're in the mailroom, chances are you're not.
Right.
But if
once you reach management and
vice president,
and upper level management, there's a higher incidence of cheating.
And let's not even
and I wonder why that is.
Let's not talk about CEO.
That CEO stands for that CEO suite stands for something else.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, why is it that the higher on the corporate ladder you are, the more likely, not the more likely, I don't want to put that out there, but statistics show that they're more likely to cheat.
Okay, it's probably because the guy in the mailroom is like, man, like, I'm just trying to keep my job. I'm not trying to cause any static. The guy that's in the CEO suite, I think that he's like Puff. I can make it go away.
Well, we saw how well that worked, huh?
I can make it go away, So I just think there's a different mentality the higher you go on the corporate ladder. It's a different mentality because now, as you rise in the ranks, you can see where you feel like money will make things disappear.
And it can. It can until it comes back.
Yeah, well, everything's come to the light sooner or later.
Do you think access has anything to do with that?
Access, yes, of course. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like if you up there and I got access to all that beneath me. I think in my head.
Yeah, it's all mine.
In my head, I believe I got access to all of that, because they're beneath me. That's how most CEOs think. They're beneath me. They don't see it as a team building. They see it like, no.
You
I'm
know
the
what
boss,
we're building. Yeah.
And you're the worker. And if I choose to step out, I'm going to go and have a conversation, invite you to lunch, and you can't say no.
Yes, you can.
You can, but in his head, you can't.
Okay, well, so if anyone is out there listening is in the corporate world, you don't have to go to lunch with anybody if you don't feel comfortable. And it's actually in the corporate world, I think it's much it's much more difficult to do that because that they do have those guardrails for sexual harassment lawsuits. I mean, and remember the Me Too movement, how that changed the dynamics of that.
Yeah, of course. But, you know, a lot of people, they want what they want. And, you know, they get in their head, they get in their feelings and all that kind of stuff. And it just, before you know it, here we are on a slippery slope.
Yeah, very slippery.
Or a sticky situation.
Yeah. Both of them, you're going to end up falling on your behind. Yeah. So I have a question for you. What do you think the statistics are for men and women admitting to cheating?
A man admitting to cheating, that's going to be really low for me because most men are going to say, "Did you see me? If you see me, you should have touched me." So I'm not admitting anything.
Well, I mean, in a survey, I don't know if they're going to admit it to their wives, but
I mean, like, you know, but if they're not admitting to their wives and admitting to their golf buddy or whatever, then I'm going to say that's pretty high.
Well, according to the Kinsey Institute survey, 19% of men admit to cheating. I'm sorry, 19% of women, 23% of men admit to cheating. That's almost a quarter of the relationships out there. You're admitting to it. So you kind of wonder how many aren't admitting to it. I mean, how high are the statistics?
How many people lives in silence? You know, it's like, nah. You know, because they're old school. And in old school, you don't talk about that. You keep that to yourself.
Yeah, because if you don't talk about it, it's not really happening.
Absolutely. You know, but once you start opening your mouth because you can't contain those feelings, that's a problem.
A big one, because
and eventually, based on who you are admitting it to, you know, I would say, man, I'm just thinking about myself, and I'm saying, look, if I was in an affair, I'm not telling anybody, nobody, and I'd be like, and you can't tell anybody, because you know, the first time that you tell somebody, then it just, you know, it's like you didn't hear it from me, but.
Oh yeah, it can skyrocket. It can, what is it, skyball or skyrocket out, and then they'll find out. Besides, I really think that eventually we find out.
So the more important question, and not to interrupt your train of thought, but the more important question, and maybe you're going to get to that later, but why do people have affairs?
Well, so it's interesting because men and women have affairs for different reasons. Men have affairs because it's usually they're motivated by sexual desire. You know, like they go to the club, they are hanging out with their guys, and they're, you know, some woman comes on to them and she.
Wait, club?
Oh, I know. You turned around completely.
Oh, club?
Club.
What kind of club?
Any club.
Because I don't go to music clubs.
No, we know that.
But I mean, like. And if I was
that's microchip, so that depends.
If I was at a music club, you know, I see a bunch of people.
I'd be with you, so it's not a problem.
You know, it is what it is. But, you know, what if I went to a strip club? I think that you now have that visual because you have, you know, that girl's half naked. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think it would be more likely in a strip joint. And I'm just, I don't know, maybe that doesn't even make sense because there are some people that don't go to strip clubs and go to nightclubs and they need them there too.
I mean, it's about availability, access, and your frame of mind. So, you know, if you go to a strip club looking to have an affair, you're going to have an affair with a girl you meet at the 7-Eleven picking up your beer before you get there. You know, it's basically your mindset. So I don't think that being in a strip club may be more titillating and more, you know, make you feel more desire, but it's not going to necessarily. You've been to strip clubs, so I mean, would that put you in?
I've never slept with a stripper. I've never hit on a stripper.
Right. So
let's
no.
clear.
But so my point, that wasn't my point. The point is, you've been to strip clubs.
Yes.
Has that ever made you want to have an affair?
You know,
Really?
I mean, what's the next? I didn't say yeah. I said yeah.
You're like stalling and moving.
To the next question, please. You know, but seriously,
but something kept you back. You were attracted. There's a difference.
Let me just say.
Yeah, let's rephrase that.
Yes, I've had an attraction.
Right.
You know, you can't not be attracted with some girl slipping and slide over you on your lap and all that kind of stuff. But then you have to. I remembered quick in my head that. You gotta go home, bro. You know, and you need to get this glitter off of you before you go there.
Yeah, it wasn't my home because guess what? You wouldn't have been allowed in that front door. Yeah. You know what? I would have used. Yeah, no, we don't. There's no sparkle plenty in my house. The only one that's allowed to sparkle is my granddaughter. She can put sparkles on. So getting back to the point though, it's like, it's not that you weren't going to have an affair because you were at a strip club. It has to be, the mindset has to be there. It doesn't matter where you are.
Right. You know, now I look at this in stages because in my early years of marriage, you know, it was like, you know, I could have been at 20 strip clubs. I'm like, I'm in a rush to get home. After like 10 years, you know, you kind of like want to kick back a little bit because
you're not in that much of a hurry anymore.
Right, because you know what home is and you know what it's all about, and it's kind of becoming routine.
Well, that's another show because that's something that you definitely need to work on. There should never be boredom in the bedroom.
But it becomes routine. And then, you know, you're like, you know, maybe, you know, I said I was going to be home at 7. Now it's 11.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And I'm still there.
Well, so that could be defined as micro-cheating.
Yeah, it could be, you know, but I'm just having a good time. I'm with my friends, you know, the dancers. They're really popping tonight. And I'm like, why am I going to go home and watch TV? I'm just going to hang out here for a little bit. That was a thought process anyway.
Okay. And so,
I mean, you know, my pockets didn't like it because these girls aren't dancing for free.
Yeah. And so you're not still in that relationship, are you?
No, I'm divorced.
Okay.
You had to bring that up, right?
Well, you know, just a little bit of a reminder there.
You had to bring that up, man. You know.
So the point is, and aside from all of that stuff, you know, men tend to have affairs because of sexual desire.
Okay.
Women tend to have affairs because of emotional connections.
Yeah, women are emotional. You know, it's like, you know.
Yeah. So, for instance, while your guy is out there at the strip club getting all his
glitter on,
his glitter and his, you know, his little be relieved from boredom and stuff, the wife is sitting at home and she's not feeling emotionally fulfilled because the same boredom that he's feeling, she's feeling.
So all of a sudden, that person on Facebook that says, you know, you're looking really hot these days.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We should meet for lunch.
That becomes something of interest.
So, and then you start having, you know, it starts off with little conversations and the intimacy builds, the emotional intimacy builds for a woman. And if that's what she feels is lacking at home, she'll find it with somebody else. Right or wrong, because I'm not passing judgment on anything. I mean, I don't believe in affairs, but this is the reality of why this kind of stuff happens.
Okay.
So, you know, the reasons are anger. We have low self-esteem. So, and by anger, I mean you're angry at your partner, so I'm going to get you back.
Okay.
Low self-esteem, you get your validation by other people finding you sexy or wanting you. And
right.
So that's how you feel validated.
And is that on both sides of the fence?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah. Lacking in love, and that's a really sad reason.
Lacking in love.
Yeah, you know, these loveless marriages.
Loveless marriage.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
No, I couldn't either. I mean, I wouldn't be in the marriage.
I would have to dip. That would, you know, because once, and we can't build it back, or we have lost the desire to build it back. What are we hanging out for? Yeah. We're just roommates.
Right. And so who wants that?
I don't want a roommate. No. I'm not in college anymore.
Well, a low sense of commitment. And these are the people that are married and they have affairs, and it's just because they don't really, commitment isn't important to them. So they don't.
Where are those people? In Europe? Where are they?
They're all over the place.
Okay, I was like, where's that?
This is the one that most men do. A need for variety. You know, if you want variety, go to Costco and buy yourself a box of the variety chips. But yeah, so their need for variety translates into women, different women. And sexual desire.
Sexual desire, you know. Yeah. So pause right there. I'm going to sidebar this and say, you know, what if your partner asks you something like, hey, look, I want to try swinging from the chandelier and having an intimate moment. And you continue to reject, make that person feel bad. So what should a person do?
Well, swinging from a chandelier can be kind of dangerous, so I don't know if I would want to do that.
Right, but I'm just using that as
I understand
an
what you're
example.
saying.
I was going to say something else, but I changed
so it
my
depends.
mind.
It depends because, we all have boundaries that we've established on the things that we will and will not do.
Right.
So if it's pushing the limit of your boundary and you don't feel comfortable doing it, you shouldn't feel like I have to do this or otherwise my partner's going to have an affair. For instance, I'm not interested in doing a threesome. Never been interested in that. So if my partner is telling me I want a threesome, I want a threesome, I want a threesome, I want a threesome, or I'll have an affair, it's like, you know what? Let's just sign the walking papers now, because you're not going to push me into doing something I don't feel comfortable in doing with a threat of you having an affair behind my back. Okay. So I think it would depend on what's being asked. And for sexual and going back to sexual desire, it should be playful. We should be having fun and we should be trying different things. And, you don't want the routine and the boredom. But that all has to be within the boundaries of your personal space and what you feel comfortable and uncomfortable doing.
Oh, okay. Well, I just think that communication is the way. And I don't think that people, just look at people that go out to dinner, because we've seen many people at dinner, they're not talking, they're on their phone. So this is a time where you can really engage, turn your phone off, turn the electronics off, put it face down, and really engage your partner. But instead, they're on their phone at dinner, at a nice restaurant. And, so you can only imagine what happens at home.
Exactly. And these are the people and that's another reason that you have an affair. You feel neglected.
Yep.
You're neglecting each other. You're neglecting the relationship. So I agree. I think that the most important thing that we can have to avoid affairs to begin with is really having an open conversation and communication. There's going to be the outliers, but they're going to do it anyway, because there are people that you can have the best relationship. You can be married to the best partner that loves you, honors you, takes care of you, protects you, and does all the things that you want, and you're still going to have an affair. Because these are the people that don't really believe in commitment.
Okay. But, is that person handling everything else? Taking care of the business, taking care of the kids, making sure we financially cool. I'm not trying to make an excuse for it. I'm just saying, like, this person may feel that I'm doing everything and I'm still not satisfied.
Well, but that's why you need the open communication, because why aren't you satisfied?
Because you won't swing from the chandelier.
Oh, well, so let's find something else. That really important C word in a relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas.
That too.
Christmas.
Compromise. Yeah, so,
So instead of swinging from the chandelier.
Maybe you can swing from the floor lamp. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, we swinging from something. At least you're trying to compromise.
Right. And so, and that's the basis of any good relationship, not barring sex, just in the whole relationship, two different people come together. So compromise is really important.
So do you find in your study or research or with your clients that the longer a couple has been together, that this is more likely?
Actually, it's not necessarily the longer they've been together. What the research shows is as you get older, you're more likely to stray.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know if it's because when you first get married, you've got, like you were saying, those first 10 years, you couldn't wait to get home. And then maybe it becomes routine. And so that's the only reason that I could think, where as you get older, you're more likely.
Well, you start having children, and, the children may be getting on your nerve,
Yeah, it changes the dynamic.
It changes the dynamic because, things are changing at home, and I think that this is where you have even harder conversations, versus just letting it ride. Because letting it ride, it ain't gonna work.
No, the relationship will continue to deteriorate.
Right. So you're setting yourself up for a heartache by not speaking on it.
Speak your truth always, always.
That's crazy. That's crazy. These numbers are staggering.
Yeah, a little frightening, but there's still, most of the people don't do that. So that's the silver lining there, is the majority of people still are not having affairs.
Right. Now, So when a woman jumps out and have an affair, because it's an emotional connection, is that harder?
It's harder
to
sever. It's harder to end because you've become emotionally involved with this person. So it can be done, but it's more challenging. If the majority of men have one night stands, that's their cheating.
It's like, look,
it's like,
man,
whatever, it's a girl
like,
I met, we hooked up and we're done.
I left the money on the table.
Oh, no, that's not good.
I left it on the table, man. What do I owe you?
Anyway, but affairs are very detrimental, not only to a relationship, but to an individual person. I mean, it destroys your feeling, your belief in love. It destroys your dignity.
Right. So when this occurs in a relationship, what should one do?
Well, I think that the first thing you need to do when you listen to the signs. Listen to the signs.
Let's go back to there. What's the signs of a cheater?
Well, the signs that something may be happening, and not necessarily a cheater. So if these signs are happening, I would investigate them, but I wouldn't assume the worst.
Right.
But, if your partner is all of a sudden they're avoiding communicating with you, and I'm not saying, a couple of days here and there, it's just the communication has completely changed. There's no longer any intimacy, emotional intimacy. You just very bland communication. We're not talking the way we used to talk. And you start to feel this. That's something that, who are they talking to? If they start all of a sudden, all right, I'm going to the gym every day. I change my hair.
That would be crazy right there, going to the gym. It's like,
Chris,
you going to the gym?
Yeah. Hey, why are you wearing all these new clothes,
You
Chris?
haven't even picked up, the only thing you picked up is a fork.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you want to go to the gym after 60 years.
Yeah, and then you grow your afro back.
Oh, no, we're not, we're not going back to that. But, that's...
You change your appearance, yeah.
And then all of a sudden I want to buy a car, but I want to get a sports car.
A sports car.
I want to get
a sexy little car for two people.
I want to get a red Corvette. Mm-hmm. Forget that family.
Ooh, I like that song.
Little Red Corvette. Yeah, that's a cheating song.
And your interests start to change. Like you start picking up all these different interests. Like now all of a sudden I'm really into music and I wasn't before. Or I'm really into a certain type of movie and I never really saw those movies before.
Right. Can you see me like, I'm really into Hallmark pictures now. I don't know why. It's just all of a sudden I got this thing.
Hankering. I just want to watch Hallmark all the time.
Only because
and start drinking Chardonnay.
Because she likes
absolutely
Hallmark movies.
So you kind of start picking up the interests of the person that you're with. Your sexual intimacy has changed. All of a sudden, there's no desire to have sex with me. Or all of a sudden you want to do really different things that are just like coming out of left field.
Yeah, swing from the chandelier.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, where did you learn that behavior from?
Or you start hiding your phone. Can't see my phone.
That's a whole different thing.
A second phone, like a burner phone, or when you take...
Well, I have two phones.
I know.
And they're both face up.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But I don't care because there's nothing in my phone that one can't see. There's, there's nobody that would call my phone that one can't talk to. And so if I'm in the shower or if I leave my phone at home or whatever, because there are people that, like I know this one person, which I will not expose them like that, but they have to drive like 30 minutes to work. Mm-hmm. Well, about halfway through the drive to work,
they forgot their phone. They
realized they forgot their phone. They turned around and was like,
did they have young children that something could happen to them?
No. It's like, bro, that phone is more important than your paycheck.
Yeah. So, and that actually, it makes me think of this video that you sent me that one of our listeners forwarded to you about this gentleman saying, you're willing to share your body with somebody, but you won't share your passwords.
I don't know. That's a whole nother show because we could talk about passwords. We could talk about passwords, codes to your phone, because technology, in my opinion, technology has made it real easy to cheat, man.
Oh, absolutely.
It's made it super
changed
easy
the game.
to cheat.
Because there's different levels of cheating. I mean, there's people that they come home and they go into a room and they're watching pornography for 3 or 4 hours.
So if your guy comes home and he's just, goes up to the family room and, he's on his phone for a large amount of time, will you just walk over and look at the phone? Like, wait, what are you doing over there?
You mean like texting or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe like, what's up?
What's up? Yeah. Hey, baby, what's up?
That's funny.
Yeah,
It's like,
you wouldn't do the same thing?
no, I haven't.
Well,
I haven't because I haven't had a reason.
Exactly, but if you had a reason.
But if she was on the phone or if you were on the phone for, let's just say, I'm put a time. If you was really going hard like 15, I'd be like, what's up? Like, who are you talking to? Are you talking to your mom?
And forget it, my mom doesn't text. So, when I'm talking to mom, it's on the phone. But being a conscious person in a relationship, let's say I'm having a text conversation with my daughter and we're going back and forth and it's taking a little bit of time, I would just tell you naturally, hey, I'm texting Ashley or I'm texting Danielle and not even because you're checking on me, but just out of courtessy.
But would that be the truth? Now, let's just say that we had been caught up in a moment and, now, it's a little suspect.
What's a little suspect?
Meaning, like, if you tell me, "Hey, I'm talking to my daughter," it's like you're a little suspect because last time you got twisted. You was doing something you didn't have no business doing. So then it would become hard to believe. Well,
so then you start losing trust.
Absolutely. So it's like, show me. Yeah. And I think that when you get to the place of show me,
there's a problem.
There's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem.
Like, I can't take your word.
Because all of us, when you get to the point of show me, there's no trust. Or the trust is starting to dissipate, and that can lead to much bigger problems. So if you're getting to the point where you want to see it, you need to address that. You need to address that. Show me, because I'm starting to doubt you. Right. It doesn't mean the relationship's over, but it means we need to do some work to get back to where we trust one another.
Right. So now we have the signs of cheating. What about if someone really got caught up and now those signs panned out to be the truth? How would one handle that, or should handle that?
Well, so in the event that it's a devastating thing to a person, a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Because it just changes your whole outlook on your relationship, on what you thought your relationship was. A lot of people aren't really surprised by it, though.
Like, I remember, again, another sidebar, but when I was younger, before marriage, I was dating this girl who actually gave me a key to her apartment and was like, "Oh, you can just come by anytime, nobody's going to be here, blah, blah, blah."
Uh-oh.
And I was like, yo, that's dope. And so, one night after the club, I decided to stop by.
And there were no cell phones back then.
No cell phone. You had a text. You had a pager,
paper, right?
A pager. And so I stopped by, and for about, it felt like 30 minutes, but for about 3-4 minutes, I was standing in the doorway watching her have sex.
Well, were you all in a committed relationship?
Yes, we were.
Oh.
And
how did you feel after that?
Oh my God, I felt like.
So what did you do?
I didn't do anything. I was actually paralyzed. So it taught me a lesson to say, never say what you're going to do in a situation.
Because you don't know. Right.
Because you don't know until you're in that situation. But I was literally paralyzed in the door. I couldn't move. And it seemed like things went into black and white. Mm-hmm. And, I remember the song that was playing in the background. I remember the time that showed up on the clock. She had a clock by her by her bed in a nightstand.
Right, in a nightstand.
And all of a sudden, I was just like, wow. And
did she see you?
Yeah, she said, I mean, like, we'll probably have to edit this part out, but she said, "OS." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Are you having an orgasm?" And he's like, "No, it's my man at the door." And she pushed him off.
Too late.
And I was just like, wow, that was hard.
Oh, Chris, I'm so sorry. That must have been really hard.
Yeah, that was hard. Like, I didn't want to kill her, but I always said that, when we have those kind of conversations, I'd be like, if I ever catch you with somebody, I'd kill you. Well, I couldn't even move.
No, but
and the guy got up, put his clothes on, and walked right past me in the doorway. And you were
still in shock.
And I didn't even move. It was crazy.
That must have been a really hard thing.
That was a hard thing. And, then she
Did you break up?
Yeah, of course. But she was gaslighting me.
Oh, well, yeah, that's one of the signs.
See, you was at the club, blah, blah, blah. You be hanging out with your boys and blah, blah, blah.
What'd you expect me to do? It's your fault. Yeah.
Right. And I'm saying, well, could you have told me? I mean, could we have that conversation? So that was the first and only time that I experienced that in my life. And I remember it like it was yesterday. This particular song.
You don't ever want to hear it again.
If I hear it today as an oldie, I'm like, switch the station.
Yeah.
I don't even want to hear that.
Yeah, it brings back those horrible memories.
It's amazing how music, timestamp situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Nah, I don't want to hear that song. I won't even tell you what it is.
I don't want to know. If I ever play it, just tell me, turn it off.
Turn it off. I don't want to hear that song.
That must have been.
Be like, that's that song.
Then I'll know.
That's funny.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but you see,
in this case, I'll probably grit my teeth for the whole 3 minutes.
So I won't know.
Right.
But so what's interesting is you kind of like blacked out, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if you were a violent person.
Oh my God.
These people that say they're blacked out in this moment of rage and fury, and then they do something that they later regret.
Right. And then one of my college buddies had, he was going to school at that time, he's going to school to be a lawyer. And, he was just about ready to graduate. And he was like, look, man, if you would have done something, if y'all were married first and you would have done something like hurt the person, we probably would have got you off of that because that's like a crime of passion. You're insane. Temporarily insane.
Yeah, I mean, but
anything else,
it's not a very easy thing to prove.
If you go back and do something else premeditated.
Right.
But I was like, no, I didn't do anything. I just sat there and realized that I didn't size up.
Well, did you regret not doing anything?
No, I didn't. It's like this.
It wasn't worth it.
This wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
I knew it, and my intuition told me.
Well,
we were just having fun. We were young. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about marriage or any of that. She never met my family or anything. So.
Yeah, no, but she gave you a key to her place.
Yeah,
and
she did.
That kind of that talks of a certain level of intimacy and relationship.
And then, if I'm being really transparent, I said that was the only time it happened to me as far as that. But in my dating experience after marriage,
You dated? Oh, you mean after divorce?
Right, after divorce. I met this girl. She really played the cards right. 'Cause she set it up. She's like, I work third shift. And so I do that every other week. So this week I work, which is overnight. And then the next week I'm off. Well, at the end of the day, this was her husband's schedule. This wasn't hers. It's her husband's schedule. And so, again, I should have known from that experience way back then. But I was like, that was kiddie games. Nobody plays that game as an adult. So I go to her house because I was over by her house. And I was just like, I'll just stop by and say what's up.
So you didn't learn the lesson. You don't just show up.
No. I had a key to the other place, so I felt like I could show up. But in this case, I knocked on her door like I'm gonna surprise her. So I was good. We just talked earlier that day, and he answered the door.
Ooh, the husband.
Yes.
Whoa.
And he was like, "Who is this Negro? And why are you at my house?"
And you were standing there. Were you in the same level of shock you were when you walked in and caught your girl with another guy?
It was a different level of shock, but I was thinking that I'm about to die. This is going to be it, because he kept talking about his gun.
Oh, Lord.
So when he said, I'm going to get my gun, I was like,
I'm going out.
I'm out of here.
Going to my car.
I'm sorry I knocked on this door. And that person just was a complete liar. Complete liar.
So what did that do to your trust?
I was like, the landscape has changed, because now I'm out of a 30-year marriage. The landscape has changed. Women are playing these games that men used to play or still playing. Mm-hmm. And it just made me say...
So it just made it harder for me.
I can't trust, man. It's like, I can't trust. So we hadn't been intimate. We had, we hadn't done.
Yeah, you hadn't gotten to that point.
Nah, but what if we had?
Yeah.
How would that have felt if we had already crossed that line?
Yeah.
So be careful out there, guys.
Well, it's. I think that the hardest part is just the betrayal, that sense of betrayal.
Yeah. It's like you feel like, hey, man, I'm giving you my time. I'm spending my resources on you. Not because I have to, because I want to, because I trust you, because I'm trying to build trust with you. And the whole time, man, you telling me something that don't even work.
Yeah. Well, imagine being in a marriage and that happens. So, what you felt, magnify that by, I don't know how much, 1 million maybe, because when you're in a relationship and something like that happens and you find out that your partner has been unfaithful, to me, it's the ultimate act of betrayal. And,
so how would one handle that?
Well, so you're going to go through the stages of grief.
Oh my God, you're going to go through some emotions for sure.
Absolutely. So
the first emotion is I hate you.
Denial, like this can't be happening, or I hate, that's anger. So, and it's not a ladder.
Right.
Because this is the stages of grief that you, at a loss. I mean, this is the same stages of grief if you lose someone. So, and they don't necessarily, you don't go through denial, anger. It waxes and wanes. But one of them, the first one is denial, like this can't be happening. You couldn't have done that to me. And so you have to start to absorb this. Mm-hmm. Then comes the depression, because it's like your whole belief in a relationship has collapsed because most people go into a marriage thinking forever and till death do us part, and not till an affair does us part. So it changes your whole trajectory of your relationship and where you thought you were headed.
Right.
And then you do go through anger. And so anger is probably the emotion that starts, and you take it all the way through as you're dealing with the denial and you're dealing with the depression. You're still angry. And I know, because of people that I know that have lived this. I've never lived it, and I'm very grateful that I didn't.
You find that women want to know, well,
all the details.
What was she like? Yeah. What she look like?
What did she do for you? How did you do it? Where were you at? What was she wearing? Oh, women will ask, and then we'll torture ourselves with all those details.
Right, but guys on the other side, I think guys only ask maybe 2 questions. Was he bigger than me? And how long this been going on? That's how guys want to know.
Did he last as long?
Right, absolutely. It's like, these are lame questions, but most guys go through that, was he bigger than me?
Because I think you kind of, first of all, and that's probably part of the shock at the beginning, to me, it's almost like you want this information because as I'm asking you, I'm starting to put together a picture. It's an ugly picture, but I'm putting together a picture in my mind so that I can be more angry and hate you even more.
Right.
But so, that first step is shock and disbelief. And so that's the moment when a lot of people say, I want a divorce. And so what most therapists would tell you, and honestly, and I'm telling all the listeners out there, if you're dealing with this, my biggest suggestion would be that you go to a couples counselor, because this is a really devastating thing for a relationship, and it's a hard thing to deal with on your own. So
you're saying go to counseling immediately? Or should I deal with me first?
No, you deal with the emotion. No, I'm not talking, couples counseling if you want to fix it, but you need to go to counseling for yourself.
Oh, okay.
Depending on how you deal with it. I've never been in this situation, so I can't really tell, but I can tell you the people that I've spoken with that have been through it, they ended up going into, if they didn't have therapists to begin with, because thank God most people actually have a therapist on speed dial, because that's the world we live in, and I firmly believe in that. But if they didn't, they would find one to help them walk through this process, because it's a process to deal with this.
Yeah, just go to your therapist and be like, he cheated. And she'd be like, oh my God, this is going to be 3 years.
Not necessarily. It also depends. So like I said, it's a process that you're going to go through. So the recommendation is when you're still dealing with the shock and disbelief, you have to, the victim of this, the person that has been cheated upon, you need to deal with this by yourself. This is not the moment for your partner to help you.
Well, how about family? Because family get in it.
Well,
then it's going to get
yes,
real
and that
messy.
gets real nasty.
Because they're like, I didn't like him anyway.
Yeah, so I understand wanting to share this with family. I wouldn't share it with my children if I had, because I think that you need to absorb it before you really share it with anybody, maybe a good friend or a sister or someone that you trust. But like, for instance, if I were to tell my parents, they'd want to kill the guy. And my dad, who's 88 years old, would want to kill the guy. So,
Yeah, your dad's OG, but...
Yeah. So, I wouldn't recommend telling your parents until you decide what you're really going to do. I'm talking about at the very beginning when you're processing things.
Right. So, in that process of processing, where do we start?
Well, so you're going to go through these stages of grief, and you're going to go through the anger, and you're going to go through the denial. And as you're going through all these things, this is an internal job for you. And ideally where you want to get as you're going through this process is you want to get to acceptance, and not acceptance and understanding, and not that you accept what they did, but that you accept that it happened. This is your reality. This is your life. This is how your relationship happened. And if you really want to grow from it, because I have, my therapist once told me, we were talking about just different things, and she said that affairs could actually be really therapeutic in relationships.
How?
Because if you want to make your marriage work afterwards, or you want to keep this relationship going afterwards, you have to do a lot of introspection, like, how did I contribute to the relationship falling apart? Not how did I contribute to you having an affair, but what did I do or what didn't I do that maybe led you to feel that this was something you could do, you should do, or you wanted to do. And so as you're going through this, and that's why therapy is so beneficial, you may, and hopefully you will get to that aha moment where it's like, oh, well, now I get it. I understand why you did that. You kept coming to me for years and years, trying to lay your head on my shoulder with all the challenges that you were having with work. And I was telling you, buck up. You're a big boy. Handle it. And so I wasn't giving you what you needed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very important in being able to accept it and understand it. And once you do that, if you decide that you actually want to continue this relationship, and this is where I would say that you would need couples counseling, you start from the beginning. And I think that the most important thing that you would learn being the person that was cheated upon is, I survived this. Because just because you accept it doesn't mean that it's okay. You just accept that it happened.
Right.
And the last thing that you want to do is forgiveness. And that is not for your partner. That forgiveness is for you. You want to forgive yourself for the things that you may have done, may not have done. And recognize the fact that you did the best that you could with what you had.
It's like, I've been a fool. I didn't even want to swing from that chandelier.
Yeah, and I swung from it, and he still had an affair.
Yeah. That's hard right there.
So understanding that if you fix a relationship, you will not go back to what you had before. But why would you want to?
Right.
So you'll go back to something different if this is what you choose to do. And you can forgive your partner and tell them, you know what, I forgive you for having the affair. I forgive you for what you did. I still don't want to be with you, but you're forgiven.
And I will never forget.
Well, that's the other thing. That forgive and forget is bull, because you can't forget things. Things can't be undone once they're done. But you can just compartmentalize it to something kind of like traumas. I've dealt with this because this is a big trauma. I've dealt with it. It's here, and I can put it aside. I'm not going to necessarily forget it, but we're not going to keep bringing it up all the time. We're going to move beyond it. And you basically give this to God. It's just give it to God, give it to the universe, just let it go, release it.
That's easy to say, but most people are like, I'm just give it to God. And then when they get upset with you, they pull it back from God and throw it in your face.
Well, and so that's why I would recommend therapy. And you can forgive somebody and never bring it up again. You truly can, because I've done that. I've done that.
Okay.
And you will not be able to rekindle a relationship or make it better unless you truly are able to forgive and put it aside. I won't say forget, because you can't, but put it aside.
What about all the gaslighting?
Okay, well, you're going to find in these relationships, you're going to find the person that, you know what, I don't even want to try with you. There's signs of like, don't even there's people that you just forget it. They're going to do this and they're going to continue to do this. And these are the people that, first of all, they blame you for it. So the gaslighting, well, yeah, like that girl, that, well, you were at the club with your friends, so what'd you expect me to do?
Right.
So the gaslighting, if they don't show any remorse for what they did, for hurting you, for devastating you, if they don't apologize for it, and this one blows me away, if they refuse to stop seeing the person,
and expect me to hang on?
Yeah, just expect you to,
no.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Yeah.
If they refuse to talk about it, it's like, okay, I got caught, it's done, I'm not going to see her anymore, I'm not going to see him anymore, but we're not going to talk about it. And they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go to couples counseling.
It's over.
My recommendation would be, yeah, that's got to end, because you're not going to go anywhere good after this one.
It's over. Yeah, I agree. No. I think that is going to be a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of sleepless nights, having to just try and sort it out.
Right. Navigate this whole thing.
And then try and find some kind of healing as we sort it out.
And so ultimately, that's where you want it all to end. Healing.
Oh, no. When I think of that, and I know I'm probably going to get blasted on this one, but it was pure to me. And now my woman's been with someone else.
Well, some people can't recover from it.
I'm probably in that category.
So, and that's the risk that you take when you do that to your partner.
Because if I tried to, then I would be the person that I'm going to the grocery store. I'll be like, call me when you get there. I want to hear the register going. Boom,
yeah, no, or better yet, I'm going with you.
Nah, I would want to put you.
So would you want to live that way?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I would want to put you through some changes, and because I wanted to put you through changes, you would probably be like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's just better that we end.
Yeah. So you may not be able to recover that trust.
But then I look at you, and the little bit that I know about you, I don't think you could recover either.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
So.
Well, actually, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that, because that's a really unfair judgment to put on me. I don't know what I would do in that situation. Kind of like
in the early stage.
In the early stages, run away. Go. Give me a moment to process this. Pack a little suitcase and go.
Give me a moment. I like that.
Or stay in the house and deal with it, because I'm not going to be a happy camper.
Stay in the house and deal with it. What do you mean?
Yeah, listen to me. Listen to me.
No,
that's all.
That
Spanish
blood ain't gonna get out on me.
Might not be a good thing.
Nah,
so, lesson there is don't do it.
Nah, I mean, I'm not a cheater. I'm a loyal person.
Right.
I'm very loyal, and I'm happy about that. When I commit, I commit. But I would be just like you though. So I can't even bash you, because the first thing that I would be like, get away from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just get away from me, man. I don't care. And then I would have to let that marinate.
Yeah, you have to process. You have to absorb it. And that's why at the very beginning, it's not a good idea to call an attorney and go through the steps, go through the grieving steps, talk to somebody. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be the end of the relationship. But even if it is, you can grow from that experience and become a better version of yourself.
I'll probably start therapy really early, though. I'll be like, not calling my therapist, but I'll be like, this is part of my therapy. I think I need to go to a strip club.
Tit for tat. That's not good.
I don't have a problem with anybody nagging me.
And so that's actually another horrible thing, is that sometimes I'll forgive you, but I'm going to do it too. And so then you play that back and forth, and that's even more, because at the end of the day, I would be falling to the same behavior that I'm condemning you to do.
Right.
And for me, I'm doing it because I'm angry. So it makes even less sense. So my recommendation is don't cheat. But if you do, or if you find out that your partner has, go through these steps that you need to go through. Find some counseling for yourself, and then if you decide that you want to move forward with your partner, find counseling for the two of you, because you can actually recover from it, and you can come out stronger.
Do people bounce back from affairs?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, and they maintain marriages, and they have better marriages than before they had the affair.
Wow.
It can happen, and I know people that actually it has happened to.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What kind of personalities do they have?
No, all types of personalities. I think that the one thing that they all have in common was they really loved their partner.
Okay. All right.
Well, guys, it was great spending time with you. We are running out of it, though, so we need to wrap this up. I hope I brought some perspective into cheating. The episode on Soul Cafe Radio of micro-cheating last week really left me thinking, and we did have a lot of response in the chat room. So I hope that something that I've said here will resonate with you, and hopefully you won't need it. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a wonderful Memorial Day tomorrow. Rest, relax, have good barbecue, enjoy family. And then on Tuesday at 2:35, join Chris and I at soulcaferadio.com for another interesting conversation on relationships. Until then, live in love. This episode of Loving You, the podcast, is brought to you by Sony Music and The Orchard, home of Eleanor Crazy for You and Groove Dynasty's Somebody Loves You Back. Both are available on all digital outlets.